welcome back to Uncut, and welcome back to another industry interview. Today with us is Betsy Heimann. Betsy is a costume designer who's best known for her work on Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Almost Famous. Today, we are talking about The Naked Gun, the hilarious movie that came out earlier this year. So without further ado, here is Betsy Heimann.
Betsy, so how did you get started in the film industry? How did you get into costume design, costume making, and what was your career path?
The career was suggested to me, and it sounded right. And I had a lot of theater training and art training at Cal Arts and UCLA. And so I worked my way up from seamstress.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That was my entry into the film business. And I've had every job in my department, and it's served me well.
And you've been in the industry for quite a while now, working in really, really iconic movies as well.
I've had very good fortune to have worked on some very iconic movies, and I'm very happy with my career.
Yeah, you have a very impressive IMDb, and we definitely want to go into that more. But we are here for The Naked Gun.
Boy.
Very funny movie. We absolutely loved it. So just beginning into talking about that film, I want to know what your process was, what research you did when designing for the characters.
Akiva Schaffer, our director, was had a very clear vision. And he wanted to be completely like a procedural. Like if we stopped the movie when it was completed at any frame, at any point, you would just think you were watching like Law and Order or, a show like that. Jokes only when called for, not jokey. So my main source of reference and research was the previous Naked Gun movies with Leslie Nielsen, and just to see that he played it straight as well, and he was dressed very nicely and not expensively, but very nicely, and so that was my leaping off point. And I just once I find for myself in my process is once I get comfortable with the world that the screenplay presents to me, then I feel like I'm set free to be creative in that world.
Yeah, as you said, most of the costumes were actually just like very straight up, like Law and Order-ish. But there were two specific ones that I was really impressed by and absolutely hilarious. One was the snowman, and the other one was the school outfit that he wears for the first scene where he's on. What were the conversations about how the outfit?
Well, I was very inspired by that scene and by that outfit, and I thought that the best way, if like a young schoolgirl, um, and let me just digress for a moment to say I've done 5 movies with Liam Neeson, so you always have to put the actor into the situation and not just what's on the page.
Yeah.
And so, I thought the Catholic schoolgirl uniform was a good idea. And what I wanted to do was I mean, it's a total fantasy that that little girl could become but my only nod to the reality was that her skirt was down to her knees and his wasn't. That was only, nod to reality, and Liam loved it, and he felt comfortable in it, and then, um, Akiva wanted some, like, childlike underpants on him, and first we talked about cherries, and then, I said, "Let's just do these strawberries. Look at this fabric. It's pink with the strawberries on it. What do you think?" And he said, "Okay, I really won't know till I see it, but okay." And so I just made the underwear, of course, you can't just well, I guess you could, but I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for online, let's just say. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. And it was very impactful because it's Liam Neeson. You don't expect, and you see that in the trailer too.
Yeah.
You don't expect to see an actor with the movies I think of Liam Neeson are not what the trailer showed me of him in that outfit. So I think immediately that catches your attention and you want to watch this movie to see exactly what it is he's doing.
That's great. It's great to hear that. I don't often get that, from the audience to get that, review, so to speak, or that it piqued your interest. because those are the things that I hope to have happen, but I don't know.
Oh, for sure. And the movie was hilarious all throughout. And I think it was a combination of not only the script, but also the way it was filmed, the way the costumes were made. It was all a combination of everything. It wasn't just one thing that made it amazing.
Well, Akiva is terrific, by the way. He's from Saturday Night Live. He's done some of my most favorite bits. I don't know if you guys are Saturday Night Live fans or would even remember back to he did one of those those little short films with Andy Samberg and Justin Timberlake, and it was called Dick in a Box.
I think I know this one.
You do?
Yeah, this is really
You can look it up after. It's hysterical, and I didn't even know that Akiva had done that until after we did the movie, and I was just like, "Dick in a box, man, come on," with the excited. He had a very strong vision, and it's always helpful. That is extremely helpful because the director is my fearless leader, and I would like to follow, have something to follow.
For sure. Now, help me out with this one because I'm not exactly sure under what umbrella it falls, but the snowman outfit. Was that you?
Well, the top hat and the scarf, but the rest, we had people that do that, specialties, because, well, I mean, I could try, but it would never look like that. I mean, those were professionals that made the snow. And honestly, you'll have to do the research because I'm not sure whether there was somebody that actually built that snowman or it was CGI or because I was there, but I don't remember. Sorry. It's a year ago.
No worries at all, for sure.
So this movie it's hilarious, but it's also action packed. So I'm curious, from a costumer's point of view, how do you handle all the action sequences, all the potential for the costumes getting ruined? How do you prepare for those in advance?
Well, we had 50 plus speaking parts in the film, and a lot of them had stunt doubles. So you have to have more than one of the same costume for various things you do. Um, and that's how you handle it. And that's not a very exciting answer. Ask me more, I can tell you more. I just never know how much. You always have what we call multiples. And so that if something goes wrong with one, you can have another. And Liam wore that gray suit pretty much through the whole movie as one change into a navy suit briefly. But we had a lot of those. And we had quite a few of them for his stunt double.
And I imagine you had to have them in different stages of disarray.
It depends on the movie because in comedy, see, if you're doing a drama, yes, you want to see it get worse and worse and worse, and they'll stab around. But in a comedy, they go through a wall and they look like nothing happened. It's fun. You don't want to be stopped by, oh, he got hurt. You just want to laugh. So in this case, no, there were not various stages. We rigged things to do certain things for us, like the breakaway suit, when he's wearing a suit and he rips it off and he's in a cardigan and we did that sort of work on the costumes, but we didn't really break them down that much. In his case. In other people's cases, yes, like the guy that gets dragged behind a pickup truck would be, people in prison uniforms. They're, it's because that adds to the reality. They're not all the same color. They've been washed. Some, you just get what they give you when you walk in there. Some are washed, some are faded, some are not, some are bright, some are dirty, some are stained, some are not. So, it's sort of like individual character, what we did.
Now, Pamela Anderson's character had to wear some costumes that were a little bit more over the top because she was playing this character. When thinking about those kind of outfits, do you have to try to put yourself in this fictitious world that she's creating in her books?
Not really, but she's the femme fatale, but in a comedy. And again, this is, Akiva and I showed him a lot of things and just always wanting her to be gorgeous and, just the reverse of what people think of her. The only time that we had to deal with the book was the last outfit. The art department needed the last costume well before the film needed it, because I don't do everything on day one. It
Yeah.
takes time. But they needed it to do the book cover. So in that case, yes, it did overlap. But that was a completely different character because we didn't want to give that away with I don't want to say there were some changes to her appearance. That I don't want to do a spoiler alert. But, so that was that's a second character, the woman on the book. And we weren't dealing with the woman in the book. We were dealing with the woman who wrote the book.
Yeah, like the cherry. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
It's like her hair was different. That's all. They don't say it.
There are two other films we really have to ask you about. The first one being Pulp Fiction. I'd love to know what it was like to work on that film and what you remember from working on it.
Well, you don't know what you're doing until it's done, really. As far, any film. I've made an effort in my career to design films, costume design films that I respond to the screenplay. And then after responding to the screenplay, I respond to the director. And Quentin and I started our relationship with Reservoir Dogs. So we had a unspoken language for Pulp Fiction, and I was very excited. I loved Reservoir Dogs. I still love both of those movies very much. And it was great because in both cases, we had a visual conversation about what we were going to do with the films, and very collaborative, and so it was fantastic. I mean, it was great to say to him, I think that Jules and Vincent are Reservoir Dogs. And he said, oh, yeah, I like that. I said, but I think that Jules is kind of, he's kind of an uptight, like preacher type. So I want to do his costume with a very short collar on the shirt and, the narrow tie, the whole Reservoir Dogs, but more upmarket because he kind of likes to keep his hands clean. He isn't really happy when it goes south, But on the other hand, Vincent is a slob. I mean, you can just envision him eating the Big Mac in the backseat of a car with the ketchup dripping all over the place. And so I made his suit out of linen so that it would just get rumpled really fast. Now, that's not something that you would notice the quality of the fabric, but all he had to do was put it on in the morning, and by the time he got to set, it was a mess. It's fun. That was fun for me to take the characters of another film and bring them into a new film in a different way. So that was really, really fun for me.
We actually wanted to ask about Reservoir Dogs as well, because that is another classic of cinema now, and I wanted to know what you thought about that.
I was friendly with Lawrence Bender, and I was helping him out, reading scripts and kind of telling him what the budget might be, because I was already working as a costume designer, And one day he sent me a script, and I read the script, and I went, oh my God, this is unlike anything I've ever read. They're going to have to get great actors because there's pages of dialogue, and people are going to walk out of the theater if these guys can't handle it. And I said to Lawrence, because I knew he was a budding producer, but he was doing these other jobs, for other people and sending me these scripts to read. And I said, Lawrence, is this your movie? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, you're gonna, this is your shot, as we would say, after Hamilton. And he said, yeah. I said, I want to do it. And he said, I don't have any money. And I said, I don't care. And that's how I got into Reservoir Dogs.
I love that. Yeah, and I mean, you've been in so many different kinds of movies, everything from sci-fi, action, comedy. So I know it's something that we're trying to get rid of, but there is a typecast for directors usually that you find this director only does horror, this director only does comedy. Have you felt that in your craft yourself, or is that something that is different?
Well, for me personally, I've been very sure to not get stuck in a niche somewhere. I don't do Marvel films because one Marvel film, luckily for whoever gets to do them, leads to another.
Yeah.
So there are the niches of the superhero designers, and that's a big field, and they have a lot of work, and that's great. Um, like I say, I go by the script and by the director and the meeting with the director. If it's somebody new, if it's somebody I worked with before, I'm always thrilled that they call me back, and I'll do whatever they're doing. So if they're doing some kind of kooky sci-fi movie, I'm doing it if they want me, you know? And I just have my I just have my own way of finding, being fortunate and being inspired by a number of genres, and, I feel good about that. That's an appropriate thing to say.
I love that. It gives you a creative freedom. You can try new things. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, it's all about, for me, being being inspired and working as a collective. You know, I work with Phil Messina, who's an incredible production designer. You should do some research on him. He and we work so closely together. We've worked together twice, but it's so important, the camera, the production design, the costume design. We're a unit. We're an art unit. And that's where I go. If they'll have me, I wanna follow along behind them. When I did Godless with Scott Frank, who I just think is incredible, genius, wonderful, um, we used 6 colors. That's all we did. I used 6 colors and maybe shades of those colors, and so did the production designer, pretty much, same colors, and I feel like it gave it a real period look. And it also was a great, exercise in, okay, I've got Dusty Rose, brick. Okay, I guess the brick fits in the Dusty Rose. Okay, so there's an arc there of colors. You know what I'm saying? In terms of all these women who were fighting to save a town in a dirty, dusty place. I don't know if you've seen Godless. It's incredible. It's on Netflix. I shouldn't be saying that right now, but it's work that I'm incredibly proud of. And we were one of the very, very early Netflix series, and they weren't as savvy then as they are now, so I'm just not sure how many people had the opportunity to see it, but it's quite good. It's quite good. I mean, not because of me, but the story's good, the acting.
You're a big fan.
Yeah, it's really good.
Going back to the Naked Gun, I want to know what your approach to this film was from the moment you got the script. And I know you mentioned working a lot with the director, but what kind of space did you find yourself thriving the most in to make this film?
Well, it was sort of, I don't understand that. The space I found myself thriving in. That's very interesting way of putting things. Thank you for that. I'm kind of confused as to how to answer it. Nevertheless, it's quite clever. Um, I just, in this particular film, I mean, comedy is very different. The other genres, I guess, science fiction, I haven't done that much of that. It was the leap of reality situation. Um, but comedy, it's really about, in particular, Naked Gun is about the iconography of a joke and the icon that came before us, and not trying to create another icon. You never know. I don't know where that comes from. But it's like when I thought of the Danny Houston character, I thought of Ricardo Montalban because he was the bad guy in the originals.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, I think I'm gonna spend all my money on Danny's character because he's the guy with all the money who wants to rule the world. I mean, I approach it all very pragmatically. For me, it's all real, and I'm not trying to invent the wheel, is what I'm trying to say. So, with Danny, I got him these incredibly tailored suits, finest fabrics, and he wore them so well. I think he's great in the film. Liam, it's like Men's Warehouse. I mean, that's not where I got the suit, but you know what I'm his character,
Yeah.
and Paul Walter Hauser, he is he is fantastic. They all were, honestly. And you just take one look at him and I just say, I know what to do. He's the archetypal, like Hill Street Blues, sport coat, throwback with the tweed sport coat and the khaki pants. I mean, today's, they're much slicker because I did all the research on the modern detectives. I did that for Liam. Um, so it was sort of, I call it horses for courses. I don't know if it's a English saying, because certain race horses are better on certain courses than other courses. It's kind of like horses for courses for me. Pamela femme fatale, but still soft and touchy. Like you didn't want her to be so remote. And she wasn't bad, she's crafty, but she's not the evil femme fatale. But the opening image, it had to be archetypal. She again, archetype, and Priscilla Presley before her was a similar role, not the same role, and they're very different people. We had Priscilla for a cameo in the movie. She flies by quite quickly, but she was there. Another delight. She's a I had so much fun with the actors. They were all great. But with Pamela, I wanted her to be soft. I wanted her to have that silhouette of an old film star and dressed in a classic way. Not a cheap date. Just
I definitely think that came across for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, and it was really important, really, really important to me and to her. And she's great to work with. I enjoyed my collaboration. I know it sounds weird. It sounds like, well, you're a sap. You like everybody. But I did.
And to that, what was your most memorable experience on this set? And also, what was your biggest challenge?
The breakaway suit was a challenge because there were so many moving parts. And we could get it right in the workroom and make it. First, we had to get it right in the workroom. First, we had to figure out the construction of that. And we wanted to be seamless, just like Leslie Nielsen. I don't know how they did that. That was a genius. Shout out to Mary Vogt, one of my colleagues and friends. She's a costume designer of The Naked Gun. And so we had to, that was phase one. Then phase two was putting somebody in the suit and having them break it away, where was it sticky? Where did we need? Third phase, take it into Liam's dressing room and say, okay, now you try. And to get him comfortable enough with the process so that when we were rolling, it's like action and he could do it. So there were so many, it's like a lot of times with filmmaking, you think, oh, I am just making the best movie. But you have to remember, it's got to go to editorial. It's got to go to post-production. There are so many steps. You don't know what's going to happen until it's over, and so that was one of the memorable ones, the breakaway suit. And also, the gags are hard. There was another gag we had with him falling out of the big ball in the amphitheater. And we had a great special of physical effects team that we figured that how do you do that? Where the pants just fly off him. He's wearing pants. How do you hold them up? How do you take it down? So had a very gifted crew in Atlanta, and the tailoring department was amazing, just so great. There's two people I like to take with me and work with it whenever I can, and that's Donna Casey, my costume supervisor, and Maria Tortum, my assistant costume designer. And between the two of them, and I guess between the three of us, we each have our lane and we know how to do it. And Donna put an amazing crew together for me in Atlanta for us. She just did it, and she did it great. Maria, we had a tight budget on this film. It doesn't show, but costume had a very tight budget. And, Maria, she was looking on the real a lot. And, places she was savvy to know where to help, and I'm looking here, she's looking there, I'm drawing here, she's doing that. So it's real teamwork. I don't know how I got on this subject, but I would just like to say for every costume designer, I think would tell you, it is teamwork. You're only as good as the people. And I fought like hell. Can I say hell? I don't know. For Donna and Maria. And in the end, everybody was like, thank God we said yes. They're so great. So you have to be confident in your choices.
For sure. And in this movie, you work with so many great actors. I know sometimes actors make this backstory for their characters in their head. Did you have conversations with them to see what they thought of the characters to maybe put that into your designs?
Not on this film, but certainly on Heretic. I loved my collaboration with Hugh Grant. I mean, on Heretic, he is a very well researched and well thought regarding his character actor. And he and I sort of have a similar process. I find a lot of times my process is very similar to an actor's process, or so they have told me. And I think it makes a great collaboration for me because I'm very interested in how they do what they do, and very appreciative and somewhat in awe. So, yes. I mean, Hugh and I went back and forth and back and forth, and I'd say I sent him a mood board of people I thought his character could be influenced by, and he said, "Absolutely, because I was thinking of this one too," and he'd done, like, a deep dive on people I just liked their picture. I mean, I'll admit it now, but he knew all about these people, you know? And he knew where he'd been before, he knew how he got the way he got, well, and, so yes, yes, it's everything, it's everything. I I thrive in that environment.
I mean, Heretic, what a movie. What a character. My God.
Sometimes he'd go to work, he'd go on the set, and he'd do his job, and after the scene, like a 5-page scene, the crew would just stop everything and start clapping.
Yeah.
But back to costumes, I'll give you. So his cardigan, that was the challenge. The challenge of Heretic was, how do you make something look really fuddy-duddy, like benign, and then the most frightening thing you've ever seen an hour later? That's the challenge of a film where everybody only has one costume.
Mhm.
And again, with Phil and I worked on Heretic together, and he gave me all the colors that he was gonna use. This is what I do. I go to the production designer, "What colors? Can I see the paint? Can I see the fabrics? Can I?" And every one of those colors was in that sweater. And the colors that the girls were wearing were in that sweater. Everything was in there, except for Sophie. Sophie's character, her colors were not, because she was the skeptic. I mean, it's subtle stuff, but it's how I get where I'm going, you know? It's like if she doesn't have any of the colors, like Chloe East, you thought, "Oh, she's the lamb to the slaughter, this one." She had on the pink blouse with little flowers, you thought, "She's never gonna prevail, the party is over for her, over." But, Sophie was like turtleneck, dark green, almost black, and darkness is like, "I'm the dark force, you can't get past me," you know? So, this is how I do it.
Awesome.
That's really great.
Yeah. Well, Betsy, thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing. Many of our listeners are aspiring filmmakers. So, what is a piece of advice or message that you will have for them, for aspiring costume designers or filmmakers?
Well, I think that in the beginning, you have to do anything and everything because one thing leads to another.
Right.
And you just don't know what it's gonna take you. You might think you wanna be a director, and then you get asked to paint some scenery, and you discover, "Oh my god, I'm a painter. This is what I wanna do." You know? My very first job, anybody who's listening, was making, slip covers for the Star Trek machines.
Wow.
And those guys dug me, they liked what I was doing, and they recommended me to um, like a seamstress like a shop for costumes, and took it on from there. I made friends with a crane operator on my very first job. He took me for lunch, and I met the man that gave me my career.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I think that's pretty good advice. What do you guys think?
For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we have to ask the hardest question
Oh,
that apparently that we've ever asked, and it's, what is your favorite movie and why?
favorite movie in the world?
In why?
For you, and why?
What I've worked on, or just in the world?
Could be what you've worked on, could be anything that you've watched that you think, this is my favorite.
For a long time, it was Wuthering Heights, the original with Laurence Olivier. I liked that for many, 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 many years. But then, in terms of my career, I thought it was Almost Famous, because that was a labor of love for me, and I adore it. I adored working on that. And then Green Book came along, and I'm very proud of being associated with that movie. And I think that that's just a really great, heartfelt movie. So
Mm.
I cannot. I'm a movie watcher, and there's so many movies in the world, and I'm not trying to bail on your question, but it's overwhelming, because I'll say like, well, there's a Spike Lee movie out now, shout out to Spike Lee, um, High to Low, which is a remake or inspired by an Akira Kurosawa film called High Low. Adore that movie. The Kurosawa movie rocked my world. It's a black and white movie. I highly suggest, but there's is that my favorite movie in the world? No. But yes.
Impactful for sure.
Can I ask you two what your favorites are?
Yeah, for sure. I've always said my favorite film is Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro.
Great movie. You completely forget about it, right? I mean, you don't if it's your favorite, but yes, right behind you.
And as of late, I've really loved Babylon just because
Really?
the story tells of just one of the craziest times for the film industry.
I also love Babylon now, but historically, my favorite film has been The Phantom of the Opera 2004 with Gerard Butler and Emmy Rossum. That has been my favorite.
He's the greatest, by the way. I did a movie with Jerry called The Change Up. No, what's it called? Oh my God, no. Oh my God, where did the movie name go? It was with Katherine Heigl. The Ugly Truth.
Okay.
And he is wonderful. He's everything you want him to be. I'm glad it's your favorite movie. And if you like his performance, he's everything you want him to be.
That's great.
We actually watched that movie in our first date. Yeah. Betsy, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
What is, if you want people to follow you, what is your social media? And then also, what are you working on right now? What is next for you?
Then what's next for me is next year, and I don't want to jinx it.
Oh,
Next year, I can be back with you next year if you ask me to. But I'm very superstitious. We all are, because you don't want to do something that's not going to happen.
For sure.
Thanks, everybody. Please go see The Naked Gun. There's nothing as marvelous as being in the cinema when everybody's laughing at the same time. And cut.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching this episode.
You can follow us on all social media as NCOT the podcast, and additionally, you can find us on YouTube and TikTok as That Film Couple for vlogs and extra content. You can also follow me on Instagram as sebi.mp4 and on Twitch as sebasparra1k.
And you can follow me at caitlin.mp4 on Instagram as well.
My name is Sebastian.
And my name is Caitlin.
And this is
And cut!